What's going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another installment of Renegades Reviews right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I am the Renegade J.J. Williams, and today I'm going to be talking about the 1999 Tom Hanks film, The Green Mile, starring Tom Hanks as Paul, Michael Clarke Duncan as John Coffey, Bonnie Hunt as Jan, Paul's wife, James Cromwell as Hal, Michael Jeter as Dell, Sam Rockwell as Wild Bill, along with Barry Pepper, Patricia Clarkson, William Sadler, and Gary Sinise. Right off the bat, once again, they're yet another star-studded, all-star cast here in a Tom Hanks film. This film is based on a book by Stephen King, but it's definitely not what you would expect from a Stephen King book film. You know, when you compare it and you think about things like Carrie, Cujo, It, Christine, you know, all of those type of things, Pet Sematary. I know that he has some other stuff too that's not really on the big scary tip, but immediately when you hear Stephen King, you think horror. You think, like I said, you think Carrie, you think Pennywise the Clown, you know, you think of all these things. This type of film is not what you think. We begin the film in 1999, present day for the movie setting, at an assisted living home, where retiree Paul gets emotional while watching Top Hat on the TV with other, you don't want to call them inmates, but other residents of the assisted home. One of his friends, Elaine, gets concerned and kind of follows him, asks him what's wrong. And he begins to tell her about the things that he witnessed when he was working as a correctional officer at Cold Mountain Penitentiary's death row, which was nicknamed the Green Mile. So now we flash back to 1935. And Paul supervises a team of correctional officers. They're about to receive a new inmate, John Coffey. And if you've ever seen an image of Michael Clarke Duncan, you know how tall and massive he is. Was. Very, very imposing figure. And John Coffey has been accused of raping and murdering 2 white girls. But things aren't always what they seem. John's a very, very mild-mannered, soft-spoken individual. When you think of people that are on death row for murder and rape and the despicable crimes that people get sent to death row for, you don't think of soft-spoken, mild-mannered individuals. You think of crazy, deranged, loud, obnoxious. So right off the gate, meeting John Coffey, you kind of question everything, especially since it's the South, it's the 30s, and it's an African American. Let's just get that out there right now. That has a big part to play in the case brought against him, no question. John joins other inmates on the Green Mile, including Bitterbuck and Dell. And Bitterbuck he's there, but he's not really a factor in the film. He's the first one to get executed. We don't even really get a chance to get introduced to him, which is sad because Bitterbuck is played by Graham Greene, who's a tremendous actor, usually typecast in a lot of stereotypical Native American roles. He was in Thunderheart with Val Kilmer. He was in Maverick with Mel Gibson. I believe, another one I've never seen, but I believe he was in Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner. So, you know, he's a really good character actor, but we really don't get time to get introduced to him and attached to his characters. So when they execute him first, it's just like, whatever. But it's important because his execution teaches you what is supposed to be done to properly execute someone at the electric chair on death row. Now, Percy, who's one of the guards, is just an abusive prick. He is a complete asshole. There's no other way to describe him. I try to refrain from language on the channel here on the reviews, but Percy is just an asshole. Especially to Dell. I mean, he breaks his fingers and even goes as far as to kill his pet mouse at one point. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, Paul has a history of bladder infection. And he has an episode one day at work on the mile, and John calls to him. And Paul comes over to him, kind of curious what he wants while he's having this episode. But he comes to John. John puts his hand on him and seems to miraculously heal him. His infection goes away. He goes home and does things with his wife that he had not done for a long time because of his infections. Then when Percy kills Mr. Jingles, Dell's pet mouse, John again calls for it. They bring the mouse to John, puts it in his hands, and seems to miraculously bring it back to life. Now at this point, Paul begins to wonder what we've already begun to wonder. If John is truly guilty of his crimes. Because here's a man who seemingly has a healing touch about him. But he's guilty of murder. You see what's going on here? Like, if he's got this power to heal, how can he kill? Paul begins to believe that John has a gift from God to perform divine miracles and heal people. Meanwhile, while this is all going on, we get a new inmate, Wild Bill Wharton. And Wild Bill, much like his name proclaims, he's a rowdy one. He causes trouble for the staff at all costs. He racially abuses John, and he is everything you imagine a death row inmate to be. While Coffee, John is the complete opposite. I firmly believe that's why Wild Bill was put in here, was stark contrast. Now, Paul and his team want to get rid of Percy because of his abusive nature towards the inmates, specifically Dell. They feel that he's a cancer to the team. So, in order to get him to resign from the Green Mile and take a job elsewhere, they agree to let him oversee the execution of Dell. Right when they announced that, I had a bad feeling about it. After seeing everything that he had already put poor Dell through. And I say poor Dell, granted, again, he's an inmate on death row. But from what we are given in the movie about Dell, he doesn't really come off as that bad. The actions we see of him and the characterization we see of him within the confines of what we're shown in the film, Dell has at least tried to, make right for what he done. He's asked for forgiveness. He feels sorrow and regret. So when I say poor Dell, it's because he seems to have changed for the better during his time in lockup. To the point where if he were to be set free, I wouldn't be so worried about him again. They give him that humanity. But I'm getting a little off track here. So Percy is going to preside over Dell's execution. And you already feel bad because you know the history between the two of them. At the execution, Percy deliberately avoids soaking the sponge that conducts the electricity to the body. Now, going back to Bitterbuck, like I said, they kind of showed us what steps go into an electrocution with his death. And there's a sponge you're supposed to dampen and put onto the head before you drop the conductor down, and it allows the electricity to flow straight into the body to make an easier death, if you will. Because Percy refuses to soak the sponge, it makes the electrocution that much more gruesome and agonizing. And the stench just reeks in the room. People are running out because it is so bad. This one scene, Percy's electrocution of Dell, is probably the most Stephen King-esque thing in the whole movie when you think about a Stephen King book or movie. Just the horror and the gruesome nature of that electrocution is probably the most Stephen King type thing in the whole movie. Now, as a punishment to Percy for what he did to Dell, the other guards ambush him, strap him into a straitjacket, gag him and tape his mouth shut, and throw him into a padded cell. Now, while Percy is locked up, Paul and the team decide to really put John to the test in two ways. Number one, to see what his powers really can do. And two, to see if given a chance at freedom, if he would run off. So they take John out of the prison, they sneak him out, and take him to the warden's house. And the warden's wife is suffering from a brain tumor. And the warden, when he sees John walking, I mean, he's got his shotgun ready to go. He's ready to shoot whoever is coming at him. But for some reason, there's something about John and Paul's insistence that make the warden step to the side, and John goes into the house. And he finds his wife, he approaches her, and the two share a very sweet dialogue before he finally puts his hands on her and seemingly removes the tumor from her head with his gift. John heals her, but he almost dies himself. In the past, when he healed Paul and when he resurrected Mr. Jingles, as soon as he performed his miracle, he would open his mouth and would look like hornets or wasps, something of that effect, would just come emerging out of his mouth, almost like the poison that he sucked out was now being dispensed back out into the air. He doesn't immediately release the poison that he gets out of the warden's wife. He suppresses it. He almost dies from it. Once they get him back on the Green Mile, Percy comes to cause some crap to John, and John releases it into Percy. So now he's effectively put this poison, as I keep calling it, from the brain tumor into the body of Percy. It drives Percy mad. He ends up taking his gun and shooting Wild Bill to death. Now, while this may seem bad, in essence, it's now accomplished two very good things. Wild Bill, who was just nuts, is now dead. They don't even got to waste the electricity to fry him. He's just dead. And Percy has now gone insane. So he gets committed to an insane asylum, so they've now got him off the Green Mile, which is what Paul and his team wanted to do anyway. They wanted to get rid of him. Now, when Paul goes to kind of restrain John for what he did to Percy, John calms Paul down, gets him to take his hand. And when Paul takes John's hand, he kind of psychically projects onto Paul the truth of what happened. And that John is the innocent man that we all have come to believe that he is. And the man that actually raped and murdered the kids was Wild Bill. John was framed. Essentially, what I believe, they never really addressed, but what I believe is John tried to save the girls. They were too far gone and he couldn't. And because he was there with them in his arms and their blood on him, he was pegged as the murderer. When in reality, it was Wild Bill. Realizing now what he suspected all along, Paul now dreads the fact that he's going to have to execute John, who, as weird as it may sound, has kind of become a friend. You know, to think that a man on death row could become a guard's friend, that right there seems a little bit crazy. But the fact that John was never guilty makes it make more sense. When Paul asks John if he has any final requests, John says that he's never seen a movie before. So Paul and his guards take him to the theater where they see Top Hat, which is how it all comes back around in the beginning when Paul's getting emotional while watching the movie in the retirement home. John's final request on execution day, as he's being strapped into the chair, is to not have the hood put over his head. It's customary once you put the hood over the head, then to put the sponge and everything. But John doesn't want the hood on his head because he's afraid of the dark. Always has been. We pull the switch, we execute John as we must, and come back to the present as Paul continues telling his story to Elaine. He tells us that John's death was the last execution he ever oversaw. Him and some of his team resigned afterwards, taking jobs in other areas, juvenile detention, etc. And then Paul takes Elaine for a walk and reveals to us that Mr. Jingles is still alive. And that him himself is over 100 years old. I think he says he's 108. And while Elaine views it as a blessing, that because of John's healing abilities and touch, that he's been able to withstand and live this long, Paul feels it's a curse. That he killed an innocent man chosen by God to perform miracles. And because he's the one that executed him, essentially, he now has to wander the earth. We see Paul in the next scene at Elaine's funeral, and he ponders how much longer he's going to have to go on living before he can finally have peace in death of his own. Just a great movie. And for the discussion portion of this film now, to join me, I'm going to bring on a very special guest, none other than the stat boy himself, Mike Caldwell.
Hey, how's it going, guys? What's up?
What's going on, man? Thank you very much for joining me here. Like I told you when I messaged you about this, I know that The Green Mile is quite possibly your all-time favorite film. I know it's definitely up there.
Oh,
so
yes.
When I was going to be reviewing The Green Mile, I could only think of one person that I would want to have discuss it with me, and that's none other than my brother from another mother, the Stat Boy.
That's me. It's
Stat
definitely
Boy
an
approved.
excellent. Absolutely good that you're wearing the shirt. I should be wearing yours, but didn't think about
Yes,
that.
you should.
Well, I did when it first got in. So, an excellent movie. It's definitely one that should be put in on a person's playlist. I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, where have you been the last 20 years? You've
To
got
be
a
fair,
great.
though, I had never seen it until I watched it to review it. And you know where I've been the last 20 years. Hell, you lived with me
Took you a
for
long,
over a decade.
yeah,
So, it's like,
and it took you a long time.
much like I said when I discussed Saving Private Ryan the other day, the trailer just never grabbed me. And I've always been the type of guy where the trailer just has to reach out and suck you in. There's got to be something about it that grabs you. And The Green Mile, for whatever reason, the trailers just didn't get to me. But then the more and more I would hear people talking about it, and you talk about it, the more it became like, okay, I have to see this film eventually, but I need a reason to see it.
Right.
So you're doing Tom Hanks month on Renegades Reviews. What better opportunity I have?
Sorry, my people were talking up there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nobody could have played that role of Paul Edgecombe but Tom Hanks, I think, and nobody could have portrayed John Coffey better than Michael Clark Duncan. Those two actors combined were a good pairing in Hollywood. Very, when you get that good pairing, you know, it makes good movie magic. And I believe there was also a friendship between the two of them. And sadly, when Michael Clark Duncan passed away, uh, Tom Hanks spoke at his funeral and
Mhm.
told this very funny story. I mean, it definitely took the sadness away of his funeral, but he even got that southern drawl that John Coffey could portray, because he was making fun of a story where Michael Clark Duncan tried to join a gang and his mom ended up beating him up, and the way he was talking with that Alabama Georgia Bible Belt accent, it was almost like Forrest Gump. And yeah, and the cameo scene of Gary Sinise. Gary Sinise and Tom Hanks are good friends, so they had to
Yeah,
have that little backstory. You know, we had a family dog and he turned on us, and you got to watch out because John Coffey's going to turn on you. Uh, no, John Coffey is one of those characters. He's one of the definite. He takes the word gentle giant to a whole new meaning. You know.
I I absolutely agree with you. When I was doing the synopsis part before I brought you on, I mentioned about how the characterization of John Coffey is not what you would expect a death row inmate to have. Very mild
No,
mannered,
not at
very
all.
soft spoken. Whereas Wild Bill, that's exactly what you would
Oh
expect
yeah.
from a death row inmate.
Oh yeah. And John Coffey's a simple man. And when he said, "I'm sorry, boss, I tried to take it back," he was telling the truth. But not in, but everyone's thinking, oh, I regret killing them girls. That's what they're hearing. They're not saying, I tried to take back their pain. I tried to take back their sickness, their injuries, and I tried to heal them. Black man with two injured girls in his arms, crying and wailing, and he flat out said it. I meant I couldn't take it back. I tried to take it back. And they're like, "Oh, you're sorry for what you did." No, I
No.
tried to help them. And
Yeah.
and even that line, I was trying to help them. That line in current standards is like a common defense. And like, oh, I was trying to help him. Yeah, well, look what happened when you tried to help him. You ended up doing something worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I said the same thing. Like they personally don't say it, but like you just said, I completely believe that he saw the girls after Wild Bill did what he did and tried to heal them. And because he was a black man, like you
Hmm.
said, in the South in the 30s with two young white girls in his arms and their blood on him, he was automatically pegged as the murderer.
Yep. And also because of John Coffey, that's why I use the word boss. I
Not because of
know
Andre. I always thought it was Andre.
I didn't learn about Andre until his documentary coming out, and he would say "boss" a lot. And no, John Coffey got it first, and I kind of wish if Michael Clark Duncan was still alive, I would love to give him a great big hug, and just one say how sorry I was to what happened to his character, because Green Mile is one of those movies. The very first time I saw it, yes, I cried. I admit it. That and Titanic were, I think, the only two that made me ever cry. And I just would have wanted to say thank you. I mean, I was crying though more out of anger than out of sadness because, like you said, in the 30s, no civil rights, no legal rights. Could it possibly have worked in today's standards? Maybe. I mean, with everything that has been happening in the world, could a group of people come up and say, "Hey, look at it from this side," and maybe John Coffey would have gotten exonerated? Possibly so. But I also wanted to. It also took a while for when Tom Hanks and his wife were talking, and she said to him, it was the scene, "Why not go to the courts? Go tell them what you know. Say something. Stand up." And he's like, "I can't." That was kind of hard too. That was like, this is where this is the point where this is where you should have said something, and and would the same result have happened? Probably, but at least at least Paul Hitchcock would have tried, I think.
Yeah, his conscience would have been cleared.
Yeah, and and then the cute factor comes in with Mr. Jangles, the
Yes.
mouse, the cornbread scene.
Yeah, I was
Those were my
just
two
gonna say,
favorite scenes.
I know,
Just to fetch a spool was kind of cute.
I know we've talked about it a little bit off the air and in messages. Go ahead. What was your favorite scene? Just elaborate on it
If I
for
have to go, if I have to go all time, it has to be the cornbread scene. Paul comes in with the cornbread from his missus, and they kind of played on the stereotypical, black people eat cornbread, but they did it in a funny way. They didn't do it in a degrading way. And he's like, "My missus would like to thank you for what?" And I'm for for helping me. He's like, "Oh, got it." And so then you got Dell across the way. He's like, "Oh boy, do I smell that cornbread, please." And he looks at him and he's like, "It's yours, John. If you wish, you can give it to him." He's like, breaks it in half, gives him some. Wild Bill comes in. He wants his share. And John says, "I think I'll keep it." And, Wild Bill gets all up in Edgecombe's face saying, I think he dropped the N-bomb at one point, which shouldn't have happened. And, what that Wild Bill boy, he had everything. He had nothing to lose, and he got what he got, just not the way it was supposed
yeah.
to. But with all of that, number one.
And for me, I think it was the scene where they went to the warden's house and he healed her of the brain tumor. Just the whole conversation, first getting out of the truck and the warden with the shotgun, like ready to just put a bullet in whoever's coming in. But then for whatever reason, just moving out of the way so John could come in, almost like it was meant to be. And then the conversation between the warden's wife and John. And, what's your name? John Coffey, ma'am. Oh, but not spelled the same way.
Right.
Just their whole little conversation and dynamic, and then healing her. I just thought it was really sweetly played.
Part of me also wanted to think, after that scene happened, could the warden have done something? Could he have put two and two together and maybe figured out, okay, maybe something's up. Maybe he didn't do what he did.
One will never know.
And
I mean,
of course.
And then what was your least favorite scene?
Oh, when Percy got to Mr. Jingles.
Oh, okay.
When he squashed Mr. Jingles, and Dell screamed out, and it wasn't necessarily the actual instant where the foot comes up onto the frame and steps on the mouse. It was the reveal, because to see a poor little white mouse there trampled on, that was one of those turn away moments. And then Percy's like, "No, I told you I'd get him. I told you. No big thing." And he just walks off being all arrogant and whatnot. And then, of course, the after scene where, John heals Mr. Jingles, and then the other guys, they're like, "Oh, he's fine." That redeemed the scene a little bit, but it was that actual, Mr. Jingles is just a poor, harmless little mouse. To give a condemned man his last little bits of life and humanity before the state takes over and does what he does. So yeah.
See, and for me, it was probably
And
Dell's
you
execution.
yeah,
Just
that was a
the
oof.
complete malice and nasty intent from Percy. And, again, I said this a little bit when I gave my synopsis, but you weren't there for that part. When they announced that Percy was going to oversee his execution, you already knew something was going to happen because Percy is just that asshole prick. And so when he didn't dampen the sponge, after they stressed to him how important it was during the first execution, you knew it was going to be a bad day, but you were also kind of curious as to like how bad it was going to be. Like, were they just playing it up, or is it really going to be bad? Oh no, it was that bad.
It was that bad because like and the room, you're literally 5 feet away from this guy. No barricades, no windows, no walls. You are right there. It's real. The electricity is real. I mean, in real times, not in movie times, but you are face to face with this person. You're looking at this person. You're going to see what happens. Today's world, you look through a window, they can't see you, you can't see them, and we as a nation haven't used the chair since the 80s because it's less it's all lethal injection now, so you don't know what they're going through. But the smell was real back in the day because there are plenty of stories about things happening bad. I mean, it's electricity and flesh, bad combination.
Yeah. And I said that this was probably the most Stephen King-esque thing in the movie, because the whole movie as a whole doesn't really vibe like a Stephen King movie or like what you would expect from Stephen King. Like I said earlier, you think of Carrie, you think of Cujo, you think of Pennywise the Clown, you think of Christine and Pet Sematary. This isn't that type of horror film, but that one scene is probably as Stephen King-esque as it gets in this movie, because that was just brutal.
Well, also you could also throw in the gnats coming out of his mouth after healing people. That could be
Yeah,
considered horror genre. You know, that could be Stephen King-esque. And I did read the book. I got a copy of the book, but I did it in reverse. I saw the movie first, then I read the book, and the book is essentially the same. So there's not much of any different things. Um, the writing is the same, the dialect is the same. John Coffey uses the word boss in the book. Um, there's details. It's just like you see in the movie. It's a total adaptation, and I think just after reading the book was the day you and I went to the library when we met Hurricane and Maven, and they're like, "What are your favorite kind of books? What do you guys like to read?" And my hand shot up, and I'm like, "Green Mile by Stephen King." Of course, the rest of the kids, they just wanted to meet superstars. They didn't know about reading a book, but hey,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get to my rating of the film, and then what out of 5 stars, what would you give this film?
Oh, without a doubt, 5. Without a doubt.
Yeah,
Um, I can't recall if Tom Hanks actually did get nominated for it after, I think it went Forrest Gump, Philadelphia, and then Apollo 13, and then went
flip
into
flop the
Green
first two. It was
Mile.
Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, then Apollo 13.
Okay.
Philadelphia was
I think there was a. Okay, I think there was an Oscar nomination for the movie, and I don't think it did win, which I was rooting for, but definitely it's one of my all-time favorites, if not the top. 5 out of 5, A+, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. All those good movie uh, stats, I guess. But yes, if it has to be in your collection, it has to be in your digital library. And anytime it's on, I will stop and watch it for a few minutes if I have the time.
Okay. You know, I'm pretty close with you. I don't know if I can give it 5 stars off of just a one-time view. Maybe in the future my score will go up some, but I gotta give it 4.5 though. I still feel that's pretty solid. 4.5 stars out of 5 from me. What do you guys out there think of the Green Mile? Let us know. Leave your thoughts in the comment box below as always. I'll get back to you. Hell, if Statboy here sees it, maybe he'll respond to you in the comment box. Don't forget to get those hashtags out there trending. Hashtag Casa D18 Studios. Hashtag Renegades Reviews. Hashtag Renegade Returns. And of course, the ever popular hashtag Shenanigans.
Cool.
We interrupt this episode of Renegades Reviews for an important announcement about
merchandising. Merchandising? What's that? Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Merchandising, merchandising, where the real money's made.
Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network for all the t-shirts you see here from the West Coast professor, Jeff Meacham himself. You can get shirts for the Jeff Meacham Network, Talk Wrestling, as well as the red and gold Meachamania shirts. And while you're there, don't forget to get your shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood, the Dads on Wrestling shirt, the Renegade JJ Williams, Statboy Sports Bar, and the hashtag StatboyApproved shirt. Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network and score your shirts today. Don't forget to do what the commercial told you to do and make sure you go to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network, where you can get all the t-shirts of the Casa D18 Brethren, much like the Statboy Approved shirt that I am currently wearing. You can also get one for this man's Statboy Sports Bar show. You can find the Renegade JJ Williams shirt, the Dad's Not Only on Wrestling shirt, as well as the Jeff Meacham Network shirt and the Meachamania shirts. So make sure you go there, check those out, and support us. Show us that love by buying the merch. Statboy, is there anything you'd like to say before I sign off?
Follow me on Twitter at LBStatKid1977. Send me your comments about anything. You can use the hashtag StatboyApproved. You can use the hashtag AskStatboySomething. Check out the sports bars Tuesdays at 3 o'clock on the Jeff Meacham Network. Will be anything sports related. Ask me my ideas. And as always, this episode is Statboy approved.
All right. So until next time, right here. Where is it? Until next time, right here on Renegades Reviews, exclusively on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I am the Renegade JJ Williams, and tomorrow we will be talking about yet another film that I had never seen until I watched it to review it for the channel, and that is Castaway. So make sure you tune in for that. And until then, thank you for joining us, and I will see you guys next time.